And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who's never had a fist fight with a surfer. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And there is a story behind that, and I'll be telling you soon. But boy, oh boy, is it beautiful here. And I'm back on the mainland, and the Colonel and I are not on Milleronia today. And there's a reason for that, too. And we're happy. It's a blistering hot day here in Southern California, but that doesn't bother us because we're in the studio here at stately Miller Manor. And that, of course, we may get so happy from it. And the music, as always, makes us happy. That's the Kurt Russell Orchestra and the Goldie Hawn Dancers, featuring boy tenor Brad Simpson asking the musical question, in the late 50s, early 60s, did the FCC require at least one TV station in each market to broadcast a show for kids featuring a guy with a puppet? Yes. Yes, they did, Brad. And good call. Good way to pick that out. They did in every market, but here's a little known fact, by the way. Every single one of those guys developed a very serious drinking problem. I mean, let's be honest. Come on, folks. You or I or Colonel Jeff or one of our dogs, could all do a couple of weeks with a puppet. I mean, no problem. But after 11 years, come on. You'd be reaching for a flask during commercials yourself. They could try and get them. They'd be hire, the producer would hire production assistants just to find the liquor, all right? And they know where to look. They've done that kind of thing before, but well, you'd always be a step ahead. You'd get one with the flask or the glass of whiskey behind a book on a shelf and, a little pint bottle that you could even put in your sport coat jacket. But good call on that, Brad. And yes, they did. Boy, a guy with a puppet. And neither he nor his parents thought it would come to that when he said, started practicing as a kid. And good call, Brad. And I'll tell you why Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn are so important to this show anyway, and to all shows. And by the all-new Larry Miller store. That's right. You heard me right. You heard me correctly. That's the all-new Larry Miller store. Now, we still have all the great items we always have, but now there's a new one. It's a new T-shirt, and it's the, Colonel Jeff is calling it the Bat Larry T-shirt. Now, that ought to tell you right there what it is. We'll go to the Larry Miller store and take a look at it. It's the Bat Larry T-shirt. And if Larry were just a man, you could call it the Batman T-shirt, couldn't you? But I'm not. I'm not just a man, and I never would be on this show. And both the Colonel and our dog Ozzy looked up when I said that. Not just a man. Anyway, you know what? Come to the Larry Miller store. It's a wonderful place that what you do is, by the way, to get there, you could go on many different ways. You use your computer, your iPhone, anything like that to get to it. But what you do is go to our website. That's LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the mountain? Tom Mix.
Steerike!
Boy, I hope they got that in one take. You don't want to be the Steve Reich guy and have the producer just, push the button into the studio and go, yeah, Bob, let's do it again, okay? Let's do it, in fact, do 3 in a row. But that's a good one, pal. Steve Reich. And that's one of those that's funny. I don't even know what it means, but there's no need sometimes. because it's just funny. And sometimes funny has a big meaning. Other times it's just plain funny. And thank you, Colonel Jeff. So do that. You know what? Go to the Larry Miller Store. And when you go to our website, we have a banner that says the Larry Miller Store. And I bet it'll say the all-new Larry Miller Store, in fact. And the Colonel just gave me that look of, okay. All right. But at any rate, do that. Go there. Find great things. We have great regular T-shirts that say, keep calm, Larry on. And we have our T-shirt number 2 says that I survived volcano number 2 and all I got was this lousy T-shirt. And boy, we have all sorts of good stuff. And the Larry Miller Drinking Society, LMDS, on a T-shirt. But now, Bat Larry. Boy, oh boy. If you don't like everything to do with Batman, I have no idea, by the way, how it got angry. Well, it's Batman against Superman now. Is there a memo I missed? Did I bend down to pick up a fork and when I sat back up again, they were enemies? Because I don't get it and I don't like it. They're partners, they're associates, they're in the Justice League, for crying out loud. In any case, I mean, well, they don't need to have enemy movies for me. In any case, that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. Steve Reich, I thought you were going to have that in there, right in there, after the little bongo drum. Well, the joke of the week is, I always love telling one. It's a great thing to bring back into the world. A new joke, an old joke. But this is a pretty good one. The Colonel and I both like this one. A little boy goes into his grandfather in the den, and one day, and he says, Grandpa, can I borrow $20 from you? Would you mind giving me that? And the grandfather, of course, looks at him and says, well, $20, that's a lot of money, and what do you need that for? And the boy says, well, I was going to go to the market for Mom, and I'm going to get some things there with it. And the grandfather folds his newspaper and sits up and says, son, I'll tell you something. You're a nice young man, but I got to be honest with you that when I was your age, my mother would give me $1, and I would go to the supermarket, and I would come back with coffee and tea and milk and eggs and bread and butter and so many different things. And I understand. I know the times have changed. You can't do that now. And too many damn security cameras. We got a kick out of that, and I hope you did too. And as always, if you like it, pass it along. Tell a friend or a family member. There's nothing like a good joke to brighten up your day. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. See, that's how you get to be a colonel, folks. You could just put that in. I don't know how, by the way. If I knew how, I'd be the colonel. But I like that a lot, Steve Reich. This is a terrific poem by the great Eugene Field. Now, I've read things from him before, and he's an American poet, lived from 1850 to 1895, and he only wrote children's poetry. That's how he became known as the children's poet. And here's one by him that was, in fact, maybe one of the best of the time, the most popular of that era, and certainly it was for him. It's called Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod by Eugene Field. Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod one night sailed off in a wooden shoe, sailed on a river of crystal light into a sea of dew. "Where are you going, and what do you wish?" the old moon asked the three. "We have come to fish for the herring fish that live in this beautiful sea." "Nets of silver and gold have we," said Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. The old moon laughed and sang a song as they rocked in the wooden shoe, and the wind that sped them all night long ruffled the waves of dew. The little stars were the herring fish that lived in the beautiful sea. "Now cast your nets wherever you wish, never afraid are we." So cried the stars to the fishermen three, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. All night long their nets they threw to the stars and the twinkling foam. Then down from the skies came the wooden shoe, bringing the fishermen home. 'Twas all so pretty a sail, it seemed, as it could not be, and some folk thought 'twas a dream they'd dreamed of sailing that beautiful sea. But I shall name you the fishermen three, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. Winkin' and Blinkin' are two little eyes, and Nod is a little head, and the wooden shoe that sailed the skies is a wee one's trundle bed. So shut your eyes while mother sings of wonderful sights that be, and you shall see the beautiful things as you rock in the misty sea, where the old shoe rocked the fishermen three, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. Isn't that nice? Isn't that lovely? I hope you agree. Boy, that Eugene Fields, he had a way with those words, and there was a reason he was known as the children's poet. I would have voted for that too, and then I would have read it in those days and thought, I may not be a child, but I sure like what he does. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show, the magic movie moment. Well, folks, this is a terrific movie. I must have seen it, another one of those I've seen 30, 40 times. Every time it's on cable somewhere, I turn it on. It's from 1987. And it's called Overboard, directed by Gary Marshall, God bless him, and written by Leslie Dixon, starring Goldie Hawn, Kurt Russell, Edward Herman, Mike Haggerty, Ray Combs, Scott Marshall, so many other. It's a great cast, and of course Hector Elizondo. And you know what? This movie makes me happy, and it interests me, and it has all the great things in it, that it's not just comedy, it has love and hard work and misunderstanding, and it has that great principle I love so much, dramatic irony. That's where the audience knows something before the characters do. It's a good movie, folks. And, oh boy, and it's how do you fall in love, and how do these folks fall in love? And that's why I mentioned Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn in the beginning. They're wonderful. They've done so many great movies alone, and they've made a couple together, and they're great together. And of course, they're in love. They've been a married couple for a long time. Oh, they're living together anyway for like 20 years, something like that. And they have kids. It's just, they're wonderful together. And in this movie, the magic movie moment for me is that, Goldie thinks Kurt is cheating on her, going out at night. Every night. And the premises behind that, she has amnesia, and how they were a couple in the first place. It's a very, very good movie. But she thinks, they're a married couple, and they have 4 kids. And the kids are, 4 boys who are tough as nails. And so she thinks Kurt is going out nights cheating on her. And she follows him to trap him one night, and sees instead what we see too. That he's not cheating on her. He's working hard all night at a second job to make some money. He's loading and unloading fish off, big fishing boats in that area in the Pacific Northwest. And it's a tough job. And, the fellows who work there are making fun of him and just, he's not making good friends there, but he's there every night and he'll never complain. And you know something? Goldie sees this and reacts to it and doesn't go over and say, hey, what are you doing here? Or say anything to him. And we see it at the same time, too. And Goldie does what we would do. She just takes it in and watches him as he loads and unloads and loads and unloads. And then she just, tiptoes away back home. It's a terrific movie, folks. And to watch them fall for each other is really a great part of movies. And Kurt Russell, to me, I'll tell you, has always been like Cary Grant. And I mean by that he can play. He's a great actor. Well, Lord knows, Goldie Hawn can do 1,000 things anyway. But Kurt Russell can play heavy, tough, and as well as funny and lovable. Very few stars can do that, but Kurt can. And God bless him, Cary Grant sure could too. And that's such a magic movie moment for me. And please think of it, if you've never seen this, Overboard from 1987, directed by Gary Marshall, and it has his touch all over it. I miss him very much, and I'm awfully grateful I got to know him, and, I was in 7 or 8 of his things too. But Overboard is one of my favorites, and I wasn't in that one. Can you imagine that? I wasn't in it, and I still like it. But take a chance, folks. You won't be sorry you did. And the growth of a family like that is really one of the most wonderful things we have as people, as well as Americans, and in everything we do. And I say that because the reason that we're doing our show from the mainland today here at Stately Miller Manor is that today I'm going to take my younger son to wash his car. Now that, I know right off the bat doesn't sound so interesting to you maybe, but, so what's the big deal, Larry? Well, it is a big deal. If you, he's 19 now and he's starting his sophomore year in the fall at college at really a great university in Colorado. And he has a car, a 4-door black Honda. And he's going to be driving that to Colorado. And the point is, though, that the car needs a washing. Now, you know this, and I know this. It's not good for the car to be unwashed. And I mean unwashed not for a week, but for 6 weeks. And this has been a very, very dry time in Southern California. It's like Iraq here. And I mean, it's really hot, and it's really unpleasantly hot. And, dirt gets on that car and sits there. It's not going anywhere. And you bake in that dirt and then another layer of dirt and dust and just all over the car. And I mean all over it and everywhere. Wheel wells, all the fenders, all the windows and the roof. And and I keep telling him that, that's, get it to wash today. And I love him to pieces. And he's got a tiny smile when he sort of makes an excuse and says, I was thinking of doing that, and but maybe tomorrow. Maybe why don't I do it tomorrow? And of course, sounds like a novel from a while ago. Tomorrow never comes. And that's all right. I don't mind because I just love looking at him anyway and having a chat with him. But today, after we do our show, I'm going to make him a nice bite. Because part of the thing you get to do, I've mentioned this before, but when you're a kid and you're in between school years, there's nothing better. I love that he sleeps late. I love that he just he can go to one of his old high school friends and 4 or 5 of them get together and, talk about old high school girls who aren't there, by the way. It's the boys who are there. And, But they do that. They hang out and then they have a bite late and they play some video games, but so he can sleep late. But as soon as he wakes up, I'm going to make him a Big Daddy breakfast, which is a great breakfast. I'm a terrific breakfast cooker. I may not be a great chef in this or that in other ways, but I'm pretty good with eggs, and I know how to just make it right. A little fruit, a couple of eggs, maybe sunny side up, maybe over, maybe scrambled if I'm feeling crazy, and then, well, a couple people, pieces of toast right there, big glass of milk, and a little glass of orange juice. That's a pretty good breakfast. And then I'll tell him, though, beforehand, after breakfast, we're going to wash your car. And that's because part of being a dad is not to just love your kids. It's to know when's the right time to be crabby. You know what? It's time to be crabby. Well, I went to our big supermarket near here, Ralph's. I've talked about them before, and I like them a lot. They have stores all up and down the boulevard here, and I know them all. We know them all. We used to take the kids when they were little. There are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 or 5 Ralphs up and down the boulevard. This is about within 7 miles or so. We used to go to different Ralphs to shop. One was we called the Elevator Ralphs, and one was Brown Ralphs because of the paint, and there was... We just knew it, and we enjoyed it. I knew every aisle of every Ralph's, and so I went there this morning to make sure we had stuff so that when Colonel Jeff came by, that we could have, well, I always like to make us coffee, and to make sure I had milk for the coffee if he wanted any. So I went to Ralph's today after I had my breakfast, and of course before the Colonel came over, and I realized again that question came up in my head of, am I the crabby man now? Am I the crabby old man now? Because there was a fella on his phone in Ralph's. Young guy, 27 or so, 28, and he was, and he's on his cell phone in the store. And I kept running into him. He never stopped talking. And I mean, never. He would finish a call and then immediately dial someone else. And he was as happy as a clam, folks. He was laughing on the phone and telling stories and loudly. He was loudly just having a blast on his phone in Ralph's in the aisle number 3 or number 7. And it seemed to me every aisle I turned down to get a couple of things, and I wasn't there for a huge shopping trip. My whole trip was just going to take 20 minutes or so, or 25 minutes, to get back home and put the stuff away and wait for Colonel Jeff. And he was, by the way, he was cursing too, which is something, to be honest, that I don't think should be done in that setting. You're in public, for goodness sake. You're in the market. And he's going in the blanking blank and the blanking blank, and then he'd, ha, 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 and he'd laugh. And loudly, the laugh was, ah, ha, ha, ha. So whoever he's talking to was laughing and cursing too. But the point is, then he's blocking the egg section with his cart, and he's standing there, and he's gesturing with his hands and laughing, and he's slapping the shelf because he's having so much fun. But I needed eggs too. So now I'm not only annoyed by this guy on his cell phone in public, he's in front of me and he's blocking the eggs, and I would just, excuse me, and he didn't hear anything. He doesn't, people like that don't want to hear you. You know that. And I would then just move his cart. Just, not swing it out there, not move it at 20 miles an hour. But I mean, just move it out a little bit so I can go in and get a couple of cartons of eggs. Folks, I saw him 4 or 5 other times in other aisles, and I'm telling you, I'd see me dial someone else and just go, hi, and he never said names, because whoever it was knew he would be calling wherever he was. So go, hi, listen, and then he'd start to tell something else. And it was as loud as could be. No one has ever spoken that loudly on a phone. If he spoke that loudly in the late 19th century, no one would have invented the phone. There's no need for the phone at that point. And boy, Alexander Graham Bell. And wasn't he the one who yelled, "Watson, come in here, I need you"? And Watson first heard him on the little scratchy sound that made it through. Folks, this guy, and of course, something like this is guaranteed. Now, he didn't have tattoos. He wasn't in a motorcycle gang. He wasn't, in a street gang or anything. And he looked like just some regular guy. And I get on the line and I'm starting to take my, things out of the cart and put them, where the register is there. And sure enough, this guy comes up again and he's behind me now on the line. And I really, come on. And he's annoying me so much. And he's the same thing, folks, loud and even louder and cursing their families there, and mothers with kids. And he's going, and meaning, and those are all curses. Actually, he was just doing that. But no, but he was, cursing a blue streak and telling stories and laughing and loud and really taking up, everyone's space, for lack of a better word. And he's right behind me now on the checkout line, and I looked at him. We're only about 5 feet away from each other, and I just looked at him, right in the eyes. And when he finally came to, he's still talking and laughing, and he looked at me, and I just said, "Are you talking to me?" And I spoke loudly. I spoke as loudly as he was. And I said, "Are you talking to me?" And that was loud enough to get through to him. And he just said, took the phone away from his ear, not far away, just about a few inches, and just said, "No, I'm on a call here." And I jumped right in again and just said, "Oh, so you're not speaking to me or anyone else in the store here in public. You're just having fun for yourself on the phone there and having fun with a friend of yours, and you're cursing, and I'm guessing he's cursing too, even though there are kids around here, then maybe you shouldn't do a thing like that, but you're not talking to me, are you? And it doesn't matter to you that you're in public. That doesn't matter, does it?" And I'm still talking very loudly, and I was a little miffed, and I was, not crazy angry, but getting, angry, just, "What's wrong with you?" And I got through on some level, and he blinked a couple of times and just, whispered something into the phone, like, "Oh, just goodbye," or whatever, and then closed the phone and didn't get back on it. And, folks, it began to cross my mind. I checked out, and I know everyone there. I know all the checkers, and I said hi and smiled, and here it is. It's the morning, and it's early, and the place isn't crowded yet. And, I just glanced back at him, and he's not looking at me, and I just did one of those where you shake the head, and that's when it crossed my mind, folks. Are they crazy, or am I? And that's, I think, a good question for all of us. Am I nuts because I don't like him on his cell phone in public and, talking like he's on a PA system? And am I crazy because I don't like someone like him just cursing a blue streak like that in public. That's not right. Not even in mind, just the kids there. I don't like it. So am I nuts or is he? And I think you and I think everyone out there, you and the Colonel here, I told him about it, and he feels the same way I do, that, who wants to listen to that? Are they crazy or are we? So guys on their cell phones and Ralph's or anywhere else in public, way too loud, cursing, laughing. Are they nuts, folks, or are we? And I wanted to offer you that because when do you take any stance in life? Did I take too wild a stance there by suddenly sort of bolting into his world and talking to him as loud as he was talking on his phone? When I just said, are you talking to me? Does that make me a little nuts? Does that make me a little crabby? I didn't think so. I had done something like that. Oddly enough, it was in another supermarket, but it was that when my kids were a little smaller, they were, 12 and 9. And there was somebody, the same thing, a guy, a little younger, 23, 24, and he's on his cell phone. And we're in another market, and he's telling someone, and he's, again, cursing a blue streak in public in front of their people in the aisles. They're all right next to him. And he's going, and I said to him, I kind of jerked my head back, and I just said to him, hey. And I got just a foot or two away from him, from his face, and I said, hey, stop that. And I pointed, my kids are here. Don't speak like that in public. Why would you do that? And he got angry at me. He said to the kids, oh, they never heard it before? And I said, they shouldn't have to hear it now, should they? Come on, you're better than this, aren't you? Don't do that in public in front of kids. And we separated, and I saw him, oddly enough, in another aisle about 10 minutes later in the market. And I'm there with my kids again. We're shopping. And he came up to me, and he wasn't angry or really motivated. He came up to me and he said, I want to apologize. I think you were right, and I was doing this, and maybe I shouldn't do that and be on the phone in public like that. And I said to him in the same way that he was talking, I just said, you know what? The truth is, I don't know. I don't know anymore. I don't know if you're crazy or I am, or maybe both of us. But I appreciate you saying that, because that was kind of nice. I mean, he could have just picked up a huge Perrier bottle and bonked me over the head to tell you what aisle we were in. But, and I meant what I said. I don't know, buddy. You know what? I'm glad you said that, but I don't know anymore. And he said, no, I think you were right. So, folks, Colonel Jeff told me about him surfing and here in Southern California, and he noticed two, surfer dudes, for lack of a better phrase, and they were all out in the water there. And they were dumping on this other young fellow there who was, Colonel Jeff said he was from a foreign country, he had an accent, and they were just dumping on him and, ragging on him and making fun of him and Colonel Jeff sort of paddled himself over there and just said to the guy they were ragging on, just said, don't worry about them. You're okay. You're fine. You didn't do anything wrong here. And then the two surfer dudes came over to Colonel Jeff. Now they're yelling at him, and they're ripping on him and really dirty and just angry and threatening, and which is not what you expect from surfing, for crying out loud. But Colonel Jeff said and there's no talking back because they're right there, they're right on you, and they're pointing at you and raising their fists. And he said it was about a half hour and they just didn't stop. And so we got into the same discussion, he and I, of, are we crazy? Is he nuts for trying to help the fellow they were dumping on? Well, I don't think so. Could something bad have happened? Nothing bad happened to Colonel Jeff. You're on surfboards, for crying out loud. You're not surfing at that moment, but you're in, pretty deep water. And that's not why you came surfing in the first place. In any case, folks, that's maybe the theme for today. Are you crabby, or are they? Or are we both? You know what? All I know is I'm going to get my kid's car washed with him and make him a great breakfast. That's the only thing I know for sure, and I mean that by way of saying that's the only thing I can really guarantee myself. and maybe it is for you too. Well, I hope nothing ever happens to any of us, but I think I'm going to say something again, and I think Colonel Jeff is too. And you have my support if you do that too. The next time we're all paddling on surfboards, go over and try and help the fella who was getting dumped on. And then who knows, maybe if things go wrong, you'll be able to paddle back to shore faster than they will. And, folks, that may be all I know, but it's plenty to know. And if I know it, you know it too. Homer is Homer, and Pluto is a planet. So remember now, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to, and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. And that's sure the truest thing I know. Be well, and we'll see you here next time.